I don't know about you, but I want to close more business in my sales job, be more successful, make more money, get promoted faster, get recognized more, advance forward in my career. That's what it's all about, and that's what we're trying to do. I'm going to talk to you about the number one skill that separates middle of the pack reps from great reps. And the reason why I'm making this video is because I was invited to speak with one of our SMB teams at my company. I'm a mid-market account executive. I've been doing it over 7 years. So I was speaking with some newer reps in their career, and we were talking about the topic of turning buyer pain into real business outcomes so that you can get executive alignment. That's a complicated way of saying, do you have access to the economic buyer? Do you understand the decision process? And typically when I lose deals, it's because I don't have access to the economic buyer, or I don't understand how that they could actually make a decision. So I told the team, in my experience, never make assumptions when you're speaking with your prospect. So I'm naturally a very trusting person. If you tell me something, I'm gonna take you at face value and believe you're gonna do what you're gonna say. So whenever we're on a meeting and we're talking about next steps and they say, yeah, I'm gonna go speak with blah, 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 we're gonna review the information, think about it and get back to you. Immediately that's a red flag, because you need to then ask them, well, if we're taking the time to meet today, why wouldn't you agree to another meeting? Or better yet, who else needs to be involved in this process to actually make a decision? Because you need to start multi-threading early, and you gotta build trust to do that. But whenever the prospect tells you something, don't just assume it's going to get done, because this often is what leads to you losing communication with the prospect, you losing momentum in your sales cycle, failing to get scheduled next events, and we know time kills deals. So never make assumptions and over communicate the important things. The next idea is to never underestimate a prospect's ability to disappoint you, because they can tell you everything you want to hear. You are our vendor of choice. We have budget. Here is the process to get this done. I want to get this done. And you get happy ears and you start to get really excited and you say, what can I do to support? Let's get this thing done. And then all of a sudden they can come at you and say, hey, I didn't expect this to happen. I feel really bad about it, but turns out it's not something we're gonna do this year. Let's talk in a few quarters. And all of a sudden you're just totally confused as to what happened, because you thought you had a verbal commit deal. You're telling your manager it's going to close. You've forecasted this as revenue in the quarter, and then it goes away. And early in my career, this would happen a lot because I would make assumptions. I would get overly excited, happy ears, and I didn't do everything I could to minimize the risk in these deals. So whenever you're working these deals, just recognize that you can be devastated at any point, no matter how certain you feel about the outcome. So what can you do to actually turn your buyer's challenges into business pain outcomes so that the executives care? Think about it in terms of a line. Below the line are managers, directors, and I'm oversimplifying here, because if you're working with a 50-person organization, much different than 500, much different than 5,000. I've closed deals with all of those sizes, and the hierarchies are different. The sophistication of their buying process is different. Some of them have procurement. But if you're speaking with someone low level, generally, they care about product features that make them spend more time on whatever activity they're doing, or they're unable to do it as successfully as they want. So they care about the product features so that they can save time, so that they can do their job better. You need to then ask yourself, as a result of them doing their job better, this process more efficiently, what does that mean for the business? That's top of the line. That's what the VPs, the C-levels, the executives care about. Most commonly, saving the business money, saving the business time, efficiency gains to expand margins, removing risk from the way they operate their business. So don't just take a prospect at face value for the features, and you always hear feature selling, and that's what that means. That's when you're just selling a product. You need to sell a solution. And the way you sell a solution that drives business outcomes is you need to understand, what does the business care about? And the way you understand what the business cares about is by asking the prospect what they're focused on and what are the top priorities of the org. How does this impact the organization? How does this make the business grow faster, achieve their goals? What are they trying to do? And once you understand those goals, you can then start to frame those goals in the context of MEDDIC. So you need to understand, what is the metric they're trying to solve? What is the economic buyer, decision process, decision criteria, compelling event, competitors, and what I think is most important is compelling event. Because they can have a business problem, but you need to understand the why now. So always open up the meetings. It's what I always do, and I say, why does this matter now? And then they'll say, well, we just hired this new C-level person that cares about this and blah, blah, blah. And then you say, okay, great. If they're the one who really cares about this, what do we got to do to get them in on a meeting? And this is when you get to the decision process and the economic buyer. Because most of the time when you lose these deals or your prospect goes quiet, it's because you don't have access to power, you're not above the line, you don't have access to the economic buyer. So you need to figure out how you get access to the economic buyer, because your ability to win the deal and remove risk from it rests on your ability to build trust in a relationship with that economic buyer. I think a lot of newer reps, and this is what I was asked in the meeting, they said, what are your thoughts on going above the prospect and emailing their boss, going around them and whatnot? That basically means if your prospect is not giving you access to their executives, the economic buyer, there is something missing in your sales cycle so far. You have not made them fully felt heard. There is not a strong enough compelling event because there's not urgency. You don't fully understand the business problem, so they don't trust you enough to put you in front of their boss because their boss's time matters. So if your champion is not able to understand how this problem impacts the business and you can't articulate why your solution matters to the business, they probably will not give you access to the economic buyer. And if you don't have access to the economic buyer, you're not going to win your deal. So you need to figure out how to get access to the economic buyer. There's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There's a lot of other skill development we could talk about, like select discovery skills, listening, asking better questions, research ahead of time. But those are my thoughts on overall how I think about sort of deal strategy and talking in terms of outcomes. It's always outcomes. It always is revolved around, how does their business make money? What does their business want to accomplish and why? Most businesses want to grow, they want to expand margins, they want to generate more profit and continue to grow and evolve. So you need to figure out, how does your solution help them drive that forward, and then communicate that vision to your prospect, to their executives, and ultimately that's why they will justify spending money with you, because they believe that money spent on your product is going to result in business value for their organization. Otherwise, they would not buy it. So it is your job to figure that out. And that's how I think about sales. That's what's helped me be successful. And ultimately, your success comes down to winning the important deals. 2 of my deals generate 90% of my revenue year to date of the, 20, 30 deals I've closed. Either you close the big deal or you don't close the big deal. It is a power law. That's what it's all about. It's the Pareto distribution. Either you close the big deal, you hit quota, or you don't close the big deal and you don't hit quota. If you don't close the big deal, you have no chance of being a top performer, no chance of getting in accelerators. It's going to be harder to get promoted. So it's all about closing these big deals and then using some of the elements of the process I shared here today in your big deals to remove risk and increase your ability to win. Thanks so much for watching here today. Bye.